Hey, it's Sam. I wanted to make this video follow up to what I was talking about with Jupiter in Sagittarius and going into Capricorn in early 2020. And I wanted to share this because it's something that I realized after I spoke about it yesterday is that, I'm making this video on December 15th, is that with Jupiter in Sagittarius, for example, and in its own sign, the first thing we experience is hope. But hope is often something that is inspiring to us, but it also seems unrealistic. It seems like a fantasy. Oh, I hope this can happen, or I wish this could happen, or it's like I'm dreaming of something that's far away. Now, sometimes that can be very important. And in fact, obviously what we call inspiring, especially if we're in a situation that's not very inspiring, especially when we're in a situation that is where we're being defeated or where we're not getting what we need and something uplifting. But it feels like a fantasy. It can feel like a fantasy, like religion. I just believe one day, right? But how that starts to evolve and develop is we start to gather evidence, we start to have experience, and we start to bring that thing that we have, that we believe one day will play out, or that we hope will play out, I should say, and that thing that just feels like a hope and a dream, we start to see, or we start to understand it more. And this thing that we believe, this philosophy, starts to become more certainty, because maybe we study, we apply some of those teachings, we understand that this thing that just inspired us before, that we just had a sort of hope that one day that would save us from some darkness. Now we actually see it effectively, and seeing that it just some wispy hope, but it's actually something real. When we start to, for example, when God stops being just some belief and it starts being real, and we start to have a real experience of it because of some kind of spiritual practice or something like that, then once that belief in something and that hope that the belief is going to help us, once that starts to become mixed with a kind of certainty about it, where we see it working, we see it playing out, we see that it's real. Wow, God is real. Wow, this universal wisdom is real. It's not just something I was hoping was real, because we don't see it hardly anywhere around us. You look in the world, you look in your own mind. At first, we go on faith, even about our own mind. And this is, in fact, in many ways, the most important transformation that needs to happen is in our own mind. Because in our own mind, we know, I'm not God. All this stuff, you keep saying I'm a divine being, and I'm kind of going on faith. Okay, I believe that's possible, but I wake up and I'm hungry and I'm angry and I'm irritated and I'm this and that. I don't feel like a divine being. I believe it's possible, but what? I don't see it. Then we start doing some practices, or we start getting more information, and when we see that it's real, we see just that much of it is real. And all we need is just a little bit of certainty. That's the word I'm focused on. A little bit of certainty. takes that belief in something, like a blind belief in something, and a hope that the belief is real. A little bit of certainty, a little bit of results changes everything. The first time you see something that you believed in or that you hoped would be as miraculous as you were hoping it would be, as soon as you see it that it's real, I'm not saying the full reality, I mean just a little bit of the reality. You see it working even once, just a little bit, is revolutionary. Like, oh my God, it's actually real. It's not just some hope. I'm not just hoping and praying. Oh, again, it's all Jupiter. When we're at our darkest moments, sometimes that's all we have, and that's great. It's better than not having that. It's better than not just having some hope that I can get out of it somehow. I don't know how, but I have some hope that something's going to come. And again, this is why we're all so vulnerable, because this is also where, for example, white supremacist organizations and people trying to initiate others into terrorist groups and whatnot, they prey on vulnerable people. They look for marginalized, vulnerable, like teenagers or people that are lacking hope, and they fill that hope with something. Again, this is also what I talked about with Mullah. They plant these seeds in the soil of that vulnerable mind and consciousness. So when we're at that vulnerable point, I hope somehow it works out. So hopefully that philosophy is a good one. But then once we start to see something certain and real happen, then it starts to become not just some hope, but it starts to become an action. And then we water that action and nurture it. And then eventually, again, especially if it's a good teaching. Now, again, if it's one of the bad teachings or one of the corrupt teachings, we start to get a little bit of certainty maybe about what we were taught. Let's say if it's something like some kind of terrorist, I'm using the most extreme thing possible, but even any kind of philosophy, like some kind of internet, conspiracy theory, let's just say something like that. And we say, oh yeah, wow, there's some truth to that, huh? I'm not sure. And then maybe we see some of it's true, like, oh yeah, some of it's true. But then the more we explore it, usually that starts to break away. It starts to fall away. And we look for something that's more pure and more true. But let's use the example now of good teachings, pure teachings, like you as someone who has hope and faith in astrology, or at least you have hope in it right now. You don't really have faith in it yet. Faith comes later, but this belief, this sort of certainty mixed with the mixed with the belief, then creates a faith. Then you have faith that, this is the right thing. So now I have faith that even though I've only experienced this much of it, the teachings even said that experiencing this much of it was going to be revolutionary. And they're right, it was. Just this much of it. Now I have faith that I can keep going. And then what happens is as you keep going and you have this much faith, then the next level you do this much more and you experience that much more. Then your faith gets that bigger and that bigger and that bigger. And before you know it, especially if it's a good teaching, your faith is unshakable. Because then it's not just some hope that it's going to save you. It's this hope mixed and this belief in this thing. I believe it, but I don't understand it yet. Mixed with certainty because you now have some experience. And that leads to faith in it, authentic faith. And that leads to wisdom because then you'll start doing it and you'll start practicing it and you'll stay with it because you'll have faith in it. There's a thing, it's a saying that says, fake it till you make it. That's kind of a version of this, where you fake it till you make it, means at first just go on faith. At first kind of go on faith that, well, I'm not sure how it all works yet, but it certainly makes a lot of sense and I'm going to try. I'm going to try it. This is what I do in my courses and whatnot, especially my certification course. Because I know people, they haven't experienced it yet. They haven't really gone into it. Let's say that as people are studying astrology, they have hope in it and they believe in it. Quote, we have this thing that they believe in astrology. You hear people say it all the time. Well, I don't believe in astrology. And I tell them in response, I say, it might surprise you, but I don't believe in it either. It's not a belief for me. I don't believe in it. I practice it and I see it work. And I have faith in it because of certainty. And it's led to a lot of wisdom because I've seen this thing work. I don't believe in it. It's not a belief. I don't have hope that maybe one day I'll be able to understand things because of it. I do understand things because of it. And so will you, because that's actually what it is. If you study it properly. If you don't, then it stays that kind of, it remains that sort of thing that you might believe in. And you have hope. Oh yeah, I kind of get it. But it's not real for you yet. And I say this to students, especially as they're thinking of maybe studying. And they'll just be like, well, but I'm just not sure. But how does it work? And well, I don't know. But what about this? And I'm like, look, I get it. You have to learn how it works, see this, and build up that certainty. And that certainty mixed with the belief in it. Because having a belief in it is a good belief. It's good to believe that the universe is wise and benevolent and that you're a expression of all of that universal energy. But it's just a belief until you start to see it work. And even when I say just a belief, as I started, I said, we all have this sort of belief that we're divine being, but until we start doing yoga and meditation and mantra and doing things to unlock our deeper divine nature, it's just a belief. And by the way, even those beliefs can be kind of destructive, because if we have the belief and then we never start practicing authentic teachings, people can just get these like Messiah complexes. They don't really understand even what it means. Oh, that's right, I'm divine. I'm God itself. And it just goes to serve the ego. This is why there's so much spiritual ego. Because it's this belief, especially now in the New Age world, this belief in all this stuff, but no practice. And a lot of bypassing. So then it doesn't really lead to a lot of wisdom until you get that certainty. So the reason I'm also telling you this is because it's a huge shift that needs to happen. By the way, I'm just saying this in general about anything in your life. Even the belief that you need to, let's say, start meditating or start practicing yoga or start, again, I use the example of studying astrology because I often talk to students. I help students take that leap of faith. That's literally a term. Leap of faith. Leap first. Take a leap of faith. And even like when people are, maybe thinking about studying, I encourage them to take a leap of faith. And I make the leap easier because I take all the pressure off of them. I say, look, don't worry about the money at this point. Register for the course, spend the money. But then if it really doesn't work, if you really don't like it, then stop doing it. And again, hardly ever have anyone do that, because then once they get into it, because I know I want them to have the experience. I want them to have the certainty. I want them to see what they're missing. I want them to get in there and start experiencing it and then go, wow, I had no idea. This makes so much sense. Now I get what you're talking about, what this is. And then that's what's transformative. But the thing to understand is getting them to at least have the belief, or to take their belief in it and give them some certainty. Something real where they see it, they feel it, and then the natural process takes over from there. And again, any teacher should offer that. This is what I think. They should offer that. If you stand behind what you're doing or what you're teaching, you should offer that. You should offer people the opportunity to try it. And if it doesn't work, then that's fine. Because again, as a teacher, you also really don't want people in there that don't want to be there, because then it messes it up for everybody because they're not happy. But what I also want to encourage you is this. I want you to see this process, because I don't know how many times, especially like when I do readings, I do consultations, it's the same kind of thing. People will be like, yeah, I know I should meditate more, and I know it's right for me. They believe that meditation would be good for them. In fact, they even know that it would be good for them if they would try it. But they've tried a couple times, and then it doesn't really work because it's hard. I mean, it's really not hard. It's just sitting with ourselves and being present and calm and still. But that's very hard because we're so disconnected. But I say, look, just try something. Just start with something small and start having the experiences. And again, this really relates to Jupiter moving through Capricorn. This is one of the ways, like I said yesterday, that Jupiter in Capricorn is actually quite good, because moving in there, we start to apply some of the teachings. Now, again, it's not because we're so elated about it anymore. It's because it takes work, but there's application. But I also want you to know this, and this might be the most important part, is everything that you've done that has led to your higher expansion, a higher expansiveness, and that you've really learned throughout your life, that anything that you're wise in, where you have wisdom, any area of your life where you have wisdom, it's because at some point you became absolutely certain that you could do it, that you could, literally do it on some level. And again, when I say wisdom, it can be like in your work, or where you have like mastery, where you have wisdom about something. Like, one of the main things people have wisdom about is like what they do for a living, even like wisdom about, let's say, even something like raising their children, right? Like not even just raising children in general, but raising your children, or whatever it is that you've done in your life, that you've done a lot, that you have a lot of wisdom about. At some point, you didn't know anything about it. You went on faith, probably because you loved it. This is what, you had a belief about it, and you hoped that it would be all you wanted it to be, but you weren't sure yet. But then you started having real experiences. And then as you started to see, wow, this really works, it also was, wow, I really understand it. Wow, I can do it too. And then that certainty led you to take those leaps of faith, the next level of faith, the next leap of faith, that thing that's outside your comfort zone, the next level. And you kept doing it because at some point you then became certain also of a self-image. And this is where it gets big in your life. This is where it gets really big if you want something different in your life. If you want astrology or spirituality or anything that you say you want to grow in your life, and I say that literally. People say all kinds of stuff. I want this, I want that. In your life right now, you have exactly what you want. You might not think that, but you do. In exact proportion to how much you've wanted it, that's what your life is. And if you're honest, you'll know that's true. You might say you want other things, but if you really wanted them, you would have them. Your life is a direct proportion of everything you really want in exact measure. You can tell yourself that you really want the next thing. Again, what I wind up dealing with is a lot of people that say they really want to learn astrology, or really want to understand it more, or really want to literally like be an astrologer for a living or something. And I really want that. At some point, you have to start seeing yourself that way and have that be certain. That becomes a certainty at some point. And I see the shift happen. I remember when it happened to me. And now your certainty is about you and what you know is inevitable. It's called an inevitability mindset. And for you then, at that point, it's just a matter of time. It's inevitable. because that thing that you had hope in, let's use the example of, I hope one day I could be an astrologer. I hope one day I could do astrology. It seems totally unrealistic, totally fantastical. Like that would never happen, but God, I hope it could. But where do I know? I don't know what to do. And then you start learning a little bit, but it's so complicated. There's one thing. So complicated, I could never understand it, or this or that, or it's so this or that. And someone comes along maybe like me and says, no, you could do it. You're just not used to seeing the information organized properly. But I know you can do it because I've seen others do it. And you'll hear me maybe say that, and you're like, oh, okay. All right, yeah, I believe that. Okay, I believe that that's possible, but it's still just not real. Again, then maybe you take a chance and say, okay, well, maybe I'll see. I mean, what do I have to lose? I'll try it. Again, I'll take a leap of faith. I'll try it. Then you maybe start to study and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea. He's right. This is incredible. I'm so glad I studied this because I really wanted to know. I really wanted to know how all that works. Now I understand this thing that I never thought was even possible for me to understand. Then what happens is your mindset about who you are and what's possible for you starts to change. Again, like any great thing that you learn. I'm using this as an example because it's the one that I engage with people all the time, but you can use it in any example. But what happens is I see people go through this shift where they're like, wow, I had no idea that was possible, that it was possible that I could understand it, that this is really the way things are, that this is really who I am, this is really who everyone is. Wow, I've now I can understand all the crazy stuff I never understood, all the people around me that I judged, that I felt so confused about, and myself and all the weird stuff. I get it. And from there, it's just, of course, it's not a static thing. I get it. It's like, and then you just keep studying and learning deeper and deeper layers of it. But now you've taken that leap of faith and you got this much certainty and everything changes. Your understanding of that thing changes and your understanding of yourself and what's possible for you changes. Then I see people, then they not only start to understand it conceptually, but then they start to understand how it works. And then they see that they can do it. Then they start getting a little bit of certainty about, oh, okay, it's not just that I can understand this and I see how it works, but I can actually do it. I can actually read astrology charts. I can't believe it. I can't believe that I can actually do this. He's right. It wasn't that hard. It's a lot to understand, but I understand. At least I got certainty about what it is I have to learn now. It doesn't mean I know it all yet, but at least I understand. Now I'm certain. Now I know what he was talking about. Now I have some certainty about what it's going to take and how far I need to go. Again, that's the certainty. Because at first, none of it's real. It's just total unrealistic. So then the first level of certainty is certainty, okay, now I really understand what this thing is. The next is, wow, now I understand that it's possible for me to do it. I'm not there yet, but it's possible. I could actually do this. And then it's like, now the certainty about yourself change. You become certain, again, if it's an authentic desire and an authentic thing that you're really meant to do, you become certain, okay, I'm going to do this. And you make up your mind like, wow, now I understand. Even though I have this job and this part-time job here or there, or this other thing that I'm doing, and maybe I'm not going to do it only this for a living forever, for the rest of my life or whatever, but I understand now that learning this more and understanding this more and helping people with it, especially, like if people are also like a yoga teacher or other kind of spiritual practitioner that they do, that learning this and taking it deeper, I see myself as someone who can do this on a high level and help people. Now I just need to learn it. I just need to really apply it. And I just need to get the practice. And then again, that leads to the wisdom and the faith to keep going forward. The faith to keep going forward. So I just wanted to talk about this because this evolving Jupiter, which is a belief in something that you get hope from this belief. Somehow, I believe in this thing. Mixed with a little bit of certainty equals faith that you can keep going, and then the wisdom as you keep doing it. And again, this is how Jupiter becomes, more evolved. It's not just the, the sort of, God, I hope one day, the kind of praying for some answer to descend and deliver us somehow, and the kind of bypassing, wanting the solution to happen. I've been hearing this stuff my whole life, especially being around gurus and teachers, being around great gurus who are, literally like enlightened beings and avatars. My guru Amma, for example, and people who, they're devoted, they're devotees, so to speak. And I say so to speak, not to be insulting, but they really don't listen. They just have hope. They see Amma, and they see her as what she obviously is, because it's very easy around Amma to see that she's what she says she is. It's just so obvious, just pure love, and it just feels so good, and we believe, and we have all of this. But then when it comes to actually doing the work, and in fact doing what Amma says, which is now practice, it's like, oh, it's hard. And people will say, why doesn't Amma just make us all enlightened? If Amma is God, people get into this thing in their mind. Well, if Amma is God and Amma could do anything, why doesn't she just make us all enlightened? These are the kinds of things people say in their mind, right? It's a good question. Just like, well, if God is great, why is there so much suffering? It's a good question. Without opening that can of worms up too big, the point of the matter is this is the difference between the Jupiter and the Saturn, and this is the difference between just believing that we understand something and not having certainty about really what it is. Because when these ideas come up, it's because the people that are generating the ideas haven't really experienced the truth of what this being is saying, emanating, and it's all just kind of in their heart and in their head, and they're just hoping beyond hope that she'll take the bad stuff away and it'll all be good. Again, I'm not trying to be insulting, but the real thing is to actually practice it, like all great masters say. So then you start to practice a little bit of it again, and I see it happen. I see people shift. Often they get their illusions shattered. Their illusions then get shattered, and then many of them go away and they never come back. Once their illusions of what they thought, let's say Amma was, or this divine being was, once that gets shattered, they might get angry. Angry at Amma, angry at the thing, everything. Oh, it's a bunch of hypocrisy. They're all a bunch. It's all a bunch of words, and then just kind of their illusions get shattered, and then they don't want to practice. So they'll kind of go away. But the ones where it's authentic teaching, when their illusions get shattered, they start to do the work. And that faith in Amma then, and Amma is amazing because people have so much faith in her because she's a divine being. When she says go do something, they'll do it because they believe. And then that gives them a little bit of certainty, which keeps them going to the next level. But I guess I'm saying this today because I want you to understand that, on a very deep level, so much of the next cycle of growth for you, however you define it, is your belief mixed with certainty, again, which is based on your practices, and then faith in doing more, and then that leads to wisdom. Because now you've practiced it over and over, and also mastery of whatever it is that you're doing. So just having some belief and some hope somehow isn't enough. In fact, it can be unempowering. You have to get in there and do some investigating, make it certain somehow, make it real for you. Again, if it's something like astrology, it's actually learning it correctly. And again, one of the biggest mistakes or issues with people online, especially learning and whatnot, is because they're just pulling from all kinds of stuff all over the place, and it's just not organized. And they believe it all, but none of it's just careening around in your head. And what it can create is a negative belief that, oh, this is just so hard and so complicated, because I hear this from there and I hear that from there and all, and it's just so complicated, and man, it's just too much. And again, what I wind up having to tell people is, no, it's not. If you're trying to learn from 50 people and none of them are going deep and it's not structured, you're going to get more confused. That doesn't matter what, on any subject. So doing it properly and in a structured way leads to a certainty, like, now I get it. Then you start to practice it more. Then not only do you get what it actually is, but you get that you can do it. And you start having that certainty. So, I just wanted to bring that out today, because I kind of had a bit of an epiphany about that process yesterday after I was talking about it. Jupiter is going through Sagittarius right now, and it's very close to K2, and we're getting a lot of that, we're getting a lot of those epiphanies about the pure nature of Jupiter and Sagittarius and belief and hope, and how it becomes something more, how it leads to wisdom. And I was, seeing it in my life about what started as just some like, wow, that would be amazing if one day I could just help people with this for a living or something. And it was not formed at all, But then I started getting a little, having little experiences, little breakthroughs, and always thinking about it, seeing how to, seeing how it works, staying with it. Then having little breakthroughs, and then before you know it, my perspective of who I am changed, and what was possible for me shifted. And that really led to the confidence also to expect success. Again, you hear all great gurus say this. I'm not saying I'm a great guru, but you hear great teachers and gurus say to expect success and to find and do those things that create certainty and that create that, like I said, inevitability mindset, inevitability thinking. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time now. And I see this shift happen in my students. I'm always trying to encourage that in them. Like, not only can you do it, you will do it. You just have to decide that you're going to do it, and that you're not going to give up on it when it gets hard. If you decide that you want to do it and that you're not going to give up on it when it gets hard, you will do it, because your entire life is a product of those things that you've decided are inevitable and that you're not going to give up on no matter how hard it gets. You're not going to abandon your child because it's too hard. You're not going to stop eating food because you got to go out and work. You're not going to, stop loving the people you love because it's too hard. In fact, you might stop interacting with them for a while, but you'll still love them. But again, think about that. It's like, it's an inevitability. It's certain. And so anything that you want to create new in your life, you absolutely need that mindset. You have to have it. It's not like, well, that helps. It's not that it helps. It's, in fact, the first thing that must change. It's definitely the most important, and nothing else changes until that changes. And it's even this way. You are certain. Everything in your life, in exact proportion that you have right now, has been exactly what you're certain of. You're certain that you're confused about things this way. You're certain of it. You're absolutely certain that you only get this much of that and this much of that, and you're convinced of it. And you're not giving up on it. Again, even just notice at your current state of mind or your current level of life, whatever it is. If someone tries to say, oh, but this is possible, that's possible, that's possible. No, you're certain. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm certain. I know. Believe me, I know, because there's this and there's this and I've tried and there's that and da, 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 da. You're certain. So you have, if something new is going to happen, that certainty has to come in, that inevitability, because all that certainty that you have about what's possible now is creating the inevitability mindset. You have an inevitability mindset that it's inevitable that this is how my life is going to work. So again, people all the time tell me that they want something new and something different. And then I'm always struggling with their inevitability mindset. To them, no, it's inevitable that it's like this. There was no other possibility. And there's no other possibility. Now tell me what's possible. This is what happens in readings. Now tell me what's possible. And I'm like, well, what about this thing that I know you've always thought about? You've always wanted to be a writer, and you always thought that, right? Yeah, but. Can't do that. Okay, but how do you think that happens? Because you keep in the idea that it's inevitable that you can't do it, or that it's inevitable that you will do it. And where you're at right now is just a stepping stone. That all the work that you're doing right now is because the other thing is not possible at all, or that the work you're doing now is to keep a roof over your head while your identity has now shifted to that thing that's inevitable. Yes, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to finish this life's work that has nagged me since I was a child, or this other thing or that other thing. But again, you have to build it. You have to start with a certain amount of belief that you can do it. And a belief that it's possible. And then a little bit of success, a little bit of, making some steps toward it. Then as that happens, your idea about yourself and what's possible shifts, and then your inevitability mindset kicks in. It becomes inevitable in your mind that it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So this is very important shift. And again, nothing else changes in your life until this does. And again, even if you think about it in your life, you'll know this isn't even just my opinion, that it's totally true. Every big shift that you've had, every breakthrough that you've had, every time that you went through a big change, it started with this idea, I'm not sure about something. And then, often what happens is something gets ripped from us, or something gets taken from us, or it's some kind of, I don't want to say catastrophe, but some kind of thing that we had no control of comes and disturbs our lower inevitability mindset, where we're on this course and we're like, no, this is the only thing that's possible. And something comes and blows it up and destroys it. And then it gives us some room to breathe and disrupts our habit, our habitual patterning and projection. So again, instead of being on the passive end of that, waiting for something to come and blow you up to finally get you to look into something bigger, you can just create it and cultivate it. This is one of the things that we learn in the Indian teachings. They say suffering builds character, which is true, but that's not the only way to build character. We don't have to suffer. We can engineer change, engineering growth and change. This is what entrepreneurs do. They're in charge. They're in control of the changes. They're changing according to what they want, not reacting to how life has now taken away this thing that you've been hanging on to for too long, that you don't even like, but that you think it's all you can ever have. Again, these are all the negative qualities. We're motivated by fear and the things that are around us, and even the people and the work and this. It's because we don't feel like we really chose it because of the joy in our heart. It was kind of a default thing, where matter of circumstance, and we were just trying to survive and make sure to have a good job or money, and we made all these trade-offs. Again, all that's just the past. All that, let's say all that's happened. Right, it's all happened. And that's the past. And right now, you have the rest of your life, starting right now. And all of that is accumulated experiences that can lead to whatever's next. All the skills you've acquired doing that and all that. And so the way entrepreneurs work, they do the same thing. They've had the same stuff, but they're always engineering the next thing. And they don't just, it's not just something in their mind, but it's even the same kind of process. You have to first imagine what that thing would be, which is very Jupiterian. Again, so you want to also get out of the idea that Jupiter and all of that is just like religion or spiritual. No, it's just what's inspiring you. What's next? What's the next step for you? What's the next inspiring thing? Again, it could be in business, it could be in career, it could be in spirituality, but it's the same process. Imagining, let's say for your work, okay, it's this next big thing that I want to bring out. That's going to be the thing. And it's just a faith or a belief, and wow, it would be great if that could happen. And it's not happened yet, but it's still just this hope. Again, this is how it is with me often, because a lot of my stuff revolves around my work. So Jupiter comes and I imagine that thing that's next. But I haven't done it yet. I haven't created any of it yet. I haven't started doing it yet. Then I get more certainty about it. Then I adjust. Then I see myself in that different way. Then I get another inevitability about that and all that stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to bring this out and give you this idea about how Jupiter energy evolves and develops. And again, a lot of it is that Sagittarius and then Jupiter poking his head in Capricorn, where it's that hard work and effort. And then he goes back into Sagittarius later in the year. So again, Jupiter in Sagittarius now until March 29th of next year. That's still quite a ways, right? That's like, what, 4 months? December, January, February, March, 3 months. But then he's there for 3 months. Then he goes back into Sagittarius. So great opportunity to be really reimagining what's possible for you and getting some certainty around it, really figuring it out or really practicing it and seeing things shift. And again, for those of you who are in my sphere who study astrology or thinking of getting, studying astrology or a certification course or something, that's what I do. That's what I'm all about. And, again, I'm doing that now in my, I'm accepting students, at least for the next couple of weeks, if people are interested in that. But again, this is, because I wind up talking to people a lot about that kind of transformation, people who are thinking about that sort of change and transformation. And plus that's the one I've gone through as well. So I know how to speak about it. So even aside from that part of doing it for a living or whatever, the biggest part, even of the studying and whatnot, is that people want to know how it works. They want to understand for themselves. Again, the first belief is, yes, I believe that there's this cosmic wisdom and that I'm a part of that. And again, it's still just a belief. You don't really know how it works. You don't really even believe it that much. You kind of have faith. I guess I'm a cosmic spiritual being. I don't know. I kind of believe it, but the belief is kind of a fantastic, it's like a dream. It's not a reality. It becomes a reality when you start getting certain and you start studying it and learning exactly how that works. Learning exactly how it works, exactly what the qualities of your spiritual nature are. You're a spiritual being, but exactly how does it work? It's not just random happenstance. It's very specific stuff. And in those specifics, we can see how it goes off the rails too. Too much of a certain element or a certain guna or a certain this. So anyway, we'll leave it at that. And I'm glad that people came today. I don't usually broadcast a couple days in a row, but I had that inspiration today. And anyway, you take care. Share this with others if it was helpful.